have already cleaned up the model. But when it comes to the view model, well, we don't even have one. So in this lecture, we're going to identify things that we may be able to move to a view model that currently doesn't exist. For example, if we go to the register page, we are currently creating a user directly from the code behind. This is something that we should be able to do directly from the view model, and that we're going to learn how to do. Once we implement this functionality into the view model, we won't have to create a user and assign the value to its properties, because these would be automatically assigned through data binding. And the same of course for the main page, where currently the user is signing in. We're currently getting the information from the entries, but once we move the functionality over to a view model, we won't have to get this information manually because it would be automatically assigned to an object. And we of course are going to learn how to do this in the coming lectures. Right now I'm just giving you small hints of what to expect in the coming lectures. We will also be able to evaluate if the user should even be able to click the login button, because in case one of the entries doesn't have one value, well, maybe there's no use in letting the user click the login button because they haven't written either their emails or their passwords. What we have started to do is assign an item source in the form of data binding to the list views that we've been using in the history page, in the register page, and in the new travel page. But there is still a better way of doing this that we're going to be learning throughout this section. Another thing that we will be learning to do is to get rid of the event handlers once and for all, because this at the end of the day is code behind for our views that we are trying to get rid of. Remember that the idea behind implementing MVVM is to be able to have separation between the view, the model, and the view model. So the view should not have any code behind, and that is what we're aiming for. So one of the main things that we currently have in the code behind is event handlers with a lot of functionality inside. So we will be learning how to do this in a different way that has this functionality into the view model instead of the view. Throughout this section, we're also going to learn how to, in a list view, create a specific format for one element so it displays the information that we want when the information is not specifically how we want it. I briefly mentioned in the introduction to MVVM that the view model is going to act as the intermediary between the model and the view. So it takes information from the model and translates it or modifies it a little bit so the view can display it in a better way. So our view model is definitely not right yet, it doesn't even exist. But throughout this section, we're going to learn how to automatically assign values to an object without having to obtain them from the SAML elements, but through data binding. We're going to learn how to get rid of event handlers by having that functionality inside of the view model. We're going to learn how to convert elements that come from the model into something that the view really can use, as well as to improve how we are assigning the item source to a list view, so our lists are more efficient. In the next lecture, we're going to start by talking about the iNotify property changed interface. That is going to help us attack the first issue that we mentioned. And that is to be able to assign values to an object without manually having to access them from SAML elements, but to automatically assign the values through data binding.